Good morning, students. Let us continue with our chapter Moving Charges and Magnetic Field. During the last class, we have seen Biot-Savart law and we have used this Biot-Savart law for finding the magnetic field intensity due to current carrying conductors. And two examples we have seen a straight conductor and a circular loop. And at the end of that class, I told you we have another method to find out the magnetic field. That is an easy method to find out the magnetic field surrounding a current carrying conductor. And today we are going to start that new method to find out the magnetic field intensity due to current carrying conductors. And this rule or this law, this method is known as Ampere's circuital law method. Ampere's circuital law. This Ampere circuital law is very similar to your Gauss theorem. Ampere circuital law is very similar to your Gauss theorem. So we can go for Ampere's circuital law. Okay, we can continue with Ampere's circuital law. It states that line integral of the magnetic field around any closed path is equal to mu 0 times the net current threading through the area enclosed by the path. I repeat, it states that the line integral of magnetic field around any closed path is equal to mu 0 times the net current threading through the area enclosed by the path. I told you it is similar to your Gauss theorem. In Gauss theorem, you have to consider a closed surface and flux through that Gaussian surface is 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by that Gaussian surface. Here, instead of a surface, we are considering a closed path, a two-dimensional path. A closed path. A closed path, when you are considering a closed path, line integral of magnetic field surrounding that closed path is equal to mu 0 times the current passing through the area enclosed by that closed path. Suppose we are considering a circular closed path and the area enclosed by the circular closed path you can consider as a disk, circular disk, and current is passing through the disk, circular disk, the circular disk area. So magnetic field, line integral of magnetic field surrounding that closed path is mu 0 times the current passing through the area through which area that is enclosed by that closed loop. That is the statement of Ampere's circuital law. Line integral of magnetic field around any closed path is equal to mu 0 times the current threading through the area enclosed by that closed path. So we can go for the proof, then it will be very easy for you. Okay, you see we have XY, a current carrying straight conductor. XY, a current carrying straight conductor, carries a current I. And PB, a point at a distance R from this conductor. PB, a point at a distance R from the conductor, where we have to find out the magnetic field intensity. So we are making use the Ampere's circuital law. To apply Ampere's circuital law, what we require a closed path. And we have considered a circular path of radius r, so that that required point lies on the circumference of that circular path, circular loop. So on that we can consider a small length dl, about which we are having a magnetic field B. We have already calculated what is the magnetic field due to a current carrying straight conductor of infinite length. That is, already we have calculated, and using that we can prove that Ampere's circuital law. So Ampere's circuital law says that line integral of B dot dl is equal to mu 0 times the current threading through the area enclosed by the path. See, when you consider the area enclosed by the path, only a current I is passing through. So we can come to that. By Ampere's circuital law, it says that in the line integral B dot dl is equal to line integral b dl, closed integral b dl, which is equal to b into integral dl, since b is a constant. So integral dl is 2 pi r, because dl you have taken a small length on the circumference. So when you are calculating the total dl, that is integral dl, that will be the circumference 2 pi r. So, but we know b is equal to mu 0 I by 2 pi r, that we have already calculated. So b into 2 pi r will become mu 0 I by 2 pi r multiplied by 2 pi r, which is equal to 2 pi r and 2 pi r get cancels, mu 0 I is remaining. What is left hand side? Integral b dot dl. What is on the right hand side? Mu 0 I. What is that? That is our Ampere's circuital law. That is, closed integral b dot dl is equal to mu 0 times the current threading through the area enclosed by the Amperian loop. That loop upon which we are applying the Ampere's circuital law is known as Amperian loop. The closed loop through which Ampere's circuital law is applied is known as the Amperian loop. So Amperian loop is closed integral b dot dl is equal to mu 0 I. That is Ampere's circuital law. So Ampere's circuital law says that its line integral of magnetic field around any closed path is equal to mu 0 times the net current threading through the area enclosed by the path. Okay, so that is Ampere's circuital law. Now we can go for the applications of Ampere's circuital law. I already told you Ampere's circuital law is used for finding magnetic field intensity due to current carrying conductors. So here, using Ampere's circuital law, we have to calculate the magnetic field intensity due to 3 different situations. One is straight conductor, that we have already done. Then when that straight conductor is wound in the form of a cylinder, suppose when you are having a wire, and that wire you are winding in the form of a cylinder. So a conductor that is wound in the form of a cylinder is known as a solenoid. And when that solenoid is made into a ring, then that is known as a toroid. Okay, so we have to calculate the magnetic field intensity due to solenoid and a toroid using Ampere's circuital law. So we can apply Ampere's circuital law for finding magnetic field intensity due to different types of current carrying conductors. See, we are going to apply Ampere's circuital law for finding the magnetic field intensity due to a solenoid. I already told you solenoid is a wire wound in the form of a cylinder, and the diagram shows, suppose that through that cylinder a current I0 is passing. Through that cylinder a current I0 is passing. So when you are considering one end, through that end the current is entering into that loop, and through the opposite end that current is leaving. So when you are taking the cross section, bisection of that solenoid, we can say that suppose that solenoid contains total capital N number of turns. When you are winding in the form of a cylinder, it will make different turns, and the total number of turns is capital N. Total number of turns is capital N. And suppose capital L is the total length of the solenoid. Capital L is the length of the solenoid. And when you are considering each loop current is entering and leaving. So the entering current is denoted as the dots, and the leaving current is denoted in cross. Entering currents are, see, this is one loop. In one loop, we can have 2 dots, one dot and one cross is there. This dot indicates the entering current, and cross denotes the leaving current. So at a distance, we have to find out the magnetic field intensity. So remember that outside the solenoid, there is no magnetic field. Outside the solenoid, there is no magnetic field. Outside the solenoid, there is no magnetic field. So we have to find out the magnetic field intensity due to this solenoid. To find out the magnetic field intensity due to the solenoid using Ampere's circuital law, we need a closed loop. And we have considered here a rectangular loop of A, B, C, D. We have made a rectangular loop of A, B, C, D. Now we can apply the left hand side of the Ampere circuitous law. What is that? Left hand side of Ampere circuitous law is line integral B dot dl over this closed loop. So the line integral B dot dl is equal to mu 0 I. That is Ampere circuitous law. Now we can go for the left hand side first. Line integral B dot dl. What is our closed loop? It is a rectangular loop. And we have to take the integral on each arm separately and add all together to find the total line integral over the closed loop. So we have separated the four arms. First integral is a to b b dot dl plus b to c b dot dl plus c to d b dot dl plus d to a b dot dl. And when you are saying that it is b dot dl, that is a dot product between two vectors b and dl. And when you are considering B to C and D to A, the B and DL are acting in perpendicular direction. When you are moving from B to C and D to A, B and DL are acting in perpendicular direction. So when you are calculating B dot DL, then that will become 0. And B to C, P dot integral B to C B dot DL, that is also equal to 0 because outside the solenoid magnetic field density is 0, that I already told you. So integral B dot dl will remain only for integral A to B B dot dl, and integral A to B, suppose the length AB is taken as x. So integral A to B B dot dl will become bx. Integral A to B B dot dl will become bx. And that is left hand side. So the left hand side will remain as line integral B dot dl will become bx. And I already told you there are capital N number of total turns, and small n is the number of turns per unit length. And each turn carries a current I0. So small n is the number of turns per unit length and x is the length of AB. So what will be the number of turns within that rectangular Amperian loop? That will be n into x. And each turn will carry I0 amount of current. So nx into I0 will be the total current carried by the Amperian loop. Nx into I0 is the total current carried by the Amperian loop. So mu 0 I will become mu 0 nx I0. I is the total current carried by the Amperian loop, and I0 is the current carried by one loop, and nx is the total number of turns within the Amperian loop. So we can equate bx is equal to mu 0 nx I0. Therefore b is equal to mu 0 n I0. That is the magnetic field intensity due to a current carrying solenoid. Remember, outside the solenoid there is no magnetic field, and magnetic field is acting through the axis of the solenoid, and it is given by B is equal to mu 0 n I0. That is the magnetic field intensity due to a current carrying solenoid. Next we can go for magnetic field due to a toroid. I already told you, when a straight conductor wound in the form of a cylinder, that will be a solenoid. And when you are making the two ends closed in the form of a ring of a solenoid, then that will form a toroid. And here we have to calculate the magnetic field intensity due to a toroid. Okay. See, the diagram shows a toroid. The toroid is a solenoid wound in the form of a cylinder. And the same solenoid we made in the form of a ring, that is a toroid, and the average area is A, and P, Q, R are the three different points. One is outside, one is inside, and one is through the axis of the toroid. P, R is outside, Q is inside, and P is the axial point. And I is the current flowing through. Each turn carries the current I. So closed integral b dot dl is equal to mu 0 I. Closed integral b dot dl will be equal to closed integral b dl, which is equal to b into 2 pi a, where 2 pi a is the circumference of the toroid of radius a, and I is equal to n into I0. What is I? The total current in the toroid. And I already told you capital N is the total number of turns in the toroid, and I0 is the current carried by each one. And when you consider the axial Amperian loop, the dotted line is the Amperian loop, that includes the total circumference 2 pi a. So b into 2 pi a is equal to mu 0 into ni0, because that Amperian loop encloses all the turns within the toroid since it is through the axis. So the total current I will be n into I0. So b is equal to mu 0 ni0 divided by 2 pi a, which is equal to mu 0 small n into I0, where small n is equal to capital N by 2 pi a. What is 2 pi a? Total length. And what is capital N? Total number of turns in the toroid. So here we have taken three different points P, Q and R. This is a magnetic field intensity at the point P, which is an axial point. R is outside point. We have already seen that outside the solenoid and toroid there is no magnetic field. And when you consider the point inside Q, when you consider a Amperian loop through Q, and when you consider the current enclosed by Q, which is equal to 0. This is very similar to Gauss theorem in spherical shell. In Gauss theorem in spherical shell, when you consider the inside point, no charge is enclosed by the Gaussian surface. Similarly, when you enclose a Amperian loop inside the toroid, it will not enclose any current since all the turns are outside that Amperian loop. So inside the toroid also there is no magnetic field, and inside and outside there is no magnetic field. Magnetic field is acting only along the axis, and it is given by B is equal to mu 0 n I0, where small n is the total number of turns per unit length. That is solenoid and toroid. Okay, so that is Ampere's circuital law, and this Ampere's circuital law we have used for finding the magnetic field intensity due to a solenoid and a toroid. Now we have seen that whenever a moving charge is there, that moving charge can provide a magnetic field also. Suppose a moving charge is present in an external magnetic field. Suppose a charge Q is moving with a velocity v through an external magnetic field. So when a static charge is present in an external electric field, it will experience an electric force. Similarly, whenever a moving charge is there in an external magnetic field, it will experience a magnetic force. And what is the magnetic force experienced by a moving charge in an external magnetic field? The force experienced by the moving charge in an external magnetic field is given by Q into V cross B. Q into V cross B, where Q is the charge and V is the velocity and B is the magnetic field intensity of magnetic field through which that moving charge is present, or through which the charge is moving through. So that is F is equal to Q into V cross B. The force is F is equal to Q into V cross B. So from the definition of that magnetic force, it is clear that F is equal to magnetic force Fb. F is Fx suffix b, or F simply F is given by F is equal to Q into V cross B. V cross B. V is the velocity, which is a vector, and B is magnetic field intensity, that is also a vector. So V cross B is a vector which is perpendicular to both V and B. Perpendicular to both V and B. So remember, magnetic force acting is perpendicular to both velocity and magnetic field. Magnetic force acting is perpendicular to both velocity and magnetic field. And from the definition of magnetic force, we can define magnetic field intensity. From the definition of magnetic force, we can define magnetic field intensity. See, the magnetic force is equal to F is equal to Q into V cross B, and when V and B are perpendicular to each other, then theta will become 90 degree. Theta will become 90 degree. So B is equal to F divided by Q into V into sine theta. F is equal to QVB sine theta. So B is equal to F divided by QV sine theta. If Q equal to 1 coulomb and the velocity is 1 meter per second, theta is equal to 90 degree, then F is equal to 1 Newton. What it says? It says suppose 1 coulomb of charge is moving with a velocity 1 meter per second through a magnetic field making an angle theta, 90 degree with the direction of magnetic field intensity, then it experiences a force 1 Newton. Then B is equal to 1 Newton divided by 1 coulomb by 1 meter per second into 1. So that is equal to 1 Tesla. Then the intensity E will be 1 Tesla. So Tesla is a unit of magnetic field intensity. So 1 Tesla is the strength of magnetic field when 1 coulomb of charge is moving in a direction perpendicular with a velocity 1 meter per second, experience 1 Newton of force. That magnetic field strength is 1 Tesla. That strength of that magnetic field is known as 1 Tesla. 1 Tesla is equal to 1 Newton per ampere per meter. 1 Newton per ampere per meter. You can see that Newton per ampere per meter. Newton per ampere per meter is 1 Tesla. Okay. So that is the strength of magnetic field or the intensity of magnetic field in terms of magnetic force. Anyhow, you keep in your mind, when a charge is moving through a magnetic field, it will experience a force, and that force is given by Q into V cross B. So we have seen the magnetic force acting on a moving charge is F is equal to Q into V cross B. From that equation, it is clear that force is perpendicular to velocity. So what kind of force is that? A force which is acting perpendicular to the velocity. The force which is acting always perpendicular to the velocity is known as centripetal force. So when a centripetal force is acting on a particle, what will happen to that particle? That particle will move in a circular path. So when a charge is moving through a magnetic field, it will experience a centripetal force, and it derives a circular path within that magnetic field, provided that magnetic field is a uniform magnetic field. And if it is a uniform magnetic field, there is no translatory motion, it have only rotational motion. So the force F is equal to Q into V cross B, and since V cross B is perpendicular to V, we can have that is centripetal force, and it is given by mv square divided by r. From that, r is equal to mv divided by qb, and mv is the momentum p by qb. R is equal to p by qb. And you know kinetic energy K is equal to half mv square. So V is equal to root of 2K divided by m. And what is K? K is the kinetic energy. When a charge Q is there in the potential V, the kinetic energy is given by Q into V. So that K you can replace by Q into V. So small v is the velocity and capital V is the potential. Don't get confused. So V is equal to root of 2Q into V divided by m. So radius r is equal to m into that v you can replace by root of 2qv by m divided by qb. So 1 by b into root of 2q into that m which is outside the square root will enter as m square. So 2q m square v divided by qb is outside the square root. So b you have taken out, and that q will enter into the square root as q square multiplied by m. So r is equal to 1 by b into root of 2 mv divided by q. What is that r? That r is the radius of the circular path through which that charged particle is moving within that magnetic field. We have already seen that particle will derive a circular path, and the radius is given by r is equal to 1 by b into root of 2 mv divided by q. And t is equal to 2 pi r divided by v, time period, total distance divided by velocity. So that will become 2 pi into m divided by qb. From that first equation, r by v will become m by qb. So t is equal to 2 pi r by v, 2 pi into m divided by qb. And if time period is knowing, then you can calculate the frequency. Frequency is the reciprocal of time period, n is equal to 1 by t, which is equal to qb by 2 pi m. So all these equations are very, very important. R is equal to mv by qb, or 1 by b into root of 2 mv divided by q, and t is equal to 2 pi m by qb, and n equal to 1 by t, which is equal to qb by 2 pi m. Okay, you remember all these, and very soon we will make use this in an application. See, when the moving charge is entering into the magnetic field in a direction perpendicular to the magnetic field, then V cross B, it will experience a centripetal force and derives a circular path. Suppose that is parallel to the magnetic field. When the charged particle enters into the magnetic field in a parallel direction, then V cross B will become Vb sin 0. Since sin 0 is 0, it will not experience any force. It will not experience any force. And suppose it is making a angle between 0 and 90. That is any angle theta. It makes an angle theta between. So that velocity has two components. One along the direction of B, and another along the direction of perpendicular to the magnetic field. So when it will not experience, I already told you, when it enters parallel to the magnetic field, it will not experience any extra magnetic force. So it will continue its movement along the same direction. And when it is perpendicular, it will experience a circular force, means centripetal force, and it will derive a circular path. And when it is enters making an angle theta, it will experience two velocities. One is perpendicular and the other is horizontal. So what will happen? Both force it will have now a horizontal force as well as a centripetal force. So it will move in a helical path. So helical path is just like a solenoidal path. Extended solenoidal path. Suppose it is making a circular path, it will not complete the circular path, but it is shifted towards the right, and it will move like that. Okay, so that is helical path. So when it makes an angle theta with the magnetic field, it will experience two component of velocities. See, it will experience two component of velocity. One is perpendicular velocity and the other is parallel velocity. So due to the perpendicular velocity, it will derive a circular path, and the radius is given by r is equal to mv sin theta divided by qb. Sin theta component is a vertical component, and horizontal component is cos theta component. So due to the horizontal component, it will have linear motion, that is v parallel multiplied by t, the distance traveled. So v cos theta multiplied by 2 pi m divided by qb, where t is equal to 2 pi m by qb, that you have already derived. And what is this p? That p is the pitch. Pitch is known as the horizontal distance traveled by that particle. horizontal distance traveled by that particle. So vertical component makes the particle move in the circular path, and the horizontal component makes the particle move in the horizontal path. Vertical component of velocity move in the circular path, and horizontal component of velocity makes the particle move in the linear movement. So it will derive a helical path. It will derive a helical path. Suppose we have a charged particle, and the charged particle is subjected to a electric field. It will experience an electric force, and when it is having a velocity and subjected to a magnetic field, then it will experience a magnetic force. Suppose you have a moving charge, and that moving charge is simultaneously subjected to an electric field and magnetic field. So what will happen? It will experience both electric force as well as magnetic force. Remember, it will happen only when a moving charge is subjected to simultaneous electric and magnetic field. So when you are having a moving charge and is subjected to simultaneous electric and magnetic field, it will experience a net force which is the sum of electric force and magnetic force. Which is the sum of electric force and magnetic force. And that force is known as Lorentz force. That is known as Lorentz force. So Lorentz force is the sum of electric force and magnetic force experienced by a moving charge subjected to simultaneous electric and magnetic field. See, here it is your, suppose a charge Q is moving with a velocity v, and it is subjected to an electric field E and magnetic field B. So the electric force experienced will be E into Q, and the magnetic force experienced will be Q is equal to V cross B. So the total force will be Q equal to QE plus Q into V cross B. QE plus Q into V cross B. Q is common. So Q into E plus V cross B is the total force experienced by that particle. It is the sum of electric force and magnetic force, and that is known as the Lorentz force. That is known as the Lorentz force. Suppose E and B are so adjusted in such a way, the net force acting on it is 0. Which means the magnetic force and the electric force are getting cancelled off. So we can say that if the net force acting on that moving charge is 0, then EQ plus Q into V cross B is equal to 0. That is, EQ is equal to Q into V cross B minus Q into V cross B. So EQ is equal to Q into BV. So V is equal to E by B. And this ratio E by B is known as velocity selector. And what is the particular velocity? Why it is called velocity selector? Which means this is the velocity with which that particle can move through a simultaneous electric and magnetic force. That particle can move through simultaneous electric and magnetic field without experiencing any force. So when you are adjusting V and B, that V will remain constant. That is why it is called velocity selector. The ratio E by B is known as the velocity selector. Okay. So Lorentz force is the total force on a moving charge in a simultaneous electric and magnetic field. It is the sum of electric force and magnetic force. It is the sum of electric force and magnetic force.